my wife, please. A little rim shot, a little applause. Sounds simple? No, it's not. That single line took a long time to develop. Did you ever get a thought of what that line might really have been, such as, would you please take my wife, or why don't you take my wife? Hi, I'm Dolly Vasta, and welcome back once again to For Art's Sake. Tonight we're at Catch a Rising Star at the beautiful Hyatt Regency Princeton. And we are going to be talking to Ron Auterlade, who is the general manager of the club. And we're also going to be watching and talking to Joe Bolster, a top-notch comedian who has worked very, very hard over a long period of time. I think you're really going to enjoy. So why don't you come on in and join me?
Because I think, we all have our little quirks, our little things we do, and sometimes you wonder, does everybody do this kind of thing? Like last night, I was getting undressed for bed, and I got my underwear around my ankles and kicked them up in the air and caught them. And then did one of these. Does everybody do that, Does Barbara Bush do that? George, woo! She throws them, they land on his head, Now he's talking to the Pentagon.
Why are comedy clubs so big today?
Comedy clubs so big. It's really, I feel, the need for the people to laugh. It's very vogue. We were talking a little bit before, and we said that 10 years ago really started an upsurge, a saturation, if you want, in comedy clubs. People just need to get out. Disco, of course, died a long time ago. The nightclubs, the single scene, of course, with everything that's going on with sex and everything else, people still need to get out. It's a very safe place to go. You know you're going to have a good time. Of course, if the comedians are good, and most of the clubs say, and we certainly do, that we can guarantee a good laugh.
What about the age of your audience? Some of the clubs that I've been to in the city, the age grouping seems to be in what they call that yuppie age.
Certainly is, to a vast extent, yuppie age. We deal from 18 to 70, I'd say, is our range. Our mean average age would probably be about 28 to 30. We get a good amount of college students in. The prices during the midweek are still affordable for them. Excuse me, during the weekend, most 25 to 65.
For so many years, the Borscht Belt was the training ground for young comics, and then in the early days of television there was Ted Mack, and then there was Major Bowes on the radio, all before your time, of course. And then there was Ed Sullivan when they got a little better. But it seems to me that the comedy clubs are what is really the training ground for young comics today. Now you get them, though, you don't really get them brand new and raw.
No, we don't.
Yours have already been kind of polished.
Yes. Actually, it's we're very lucky. I mean, I consider myself lucky that I don't have to deal with that, because that's a whole new ball game. We're a headline comedy club. We have 3 specific acts per week, a middle or opening act, an MC or opening act, a middle or feature act, and a headline act. That's what most of your suburban clubs are like. Your city clubs, on the other hand, are showcase clubs. That's where you can go in and see anywhere from 5 to as many as 15 comedians, each doing 10, 15 minutes at a time. Those clubs are still the clubs that are breeding the new talent.
I like the comedy clubs. I've been doing them for about 10 years, and I think they are, this decade's or last decade's vaudeville, in a sense. I think at the height of vaudeville, every town had a theater, and the shows would come through, and then when TV, of course, invaded and that sort of entertainment died, I think there was a long stretch when this kind of club didn't exist. And I think, I'm not original in saying this, but the baby boom sparked the need for this type of entertainment. It's relatively inexpensive. It's not only for the club owner, but for the patrons. It's still cheap compared to a rock concert or even movies these days. And you're seeing, or going to a bar where you're seeing a band play music by Bruce Springsteen, so you know it's not Bruce and it's their version of it. Most of the comedy that you see in a comic club is original material by, established comics, up-and-coming comedians, and it's, I think it's a nice night out. And every town now has one or more of these clubs, just as they did in the days of vaudeville. And they're a great place for comedians to start. A lot of comedians in the old days, in the 70s, if you can call those the old days, the only place to go to start in comedy was New York or Los Angeles. And you had about literally three stages in those two cities where every comedian, would-be comedian, was converging. So that just getting on stage was an achievement. And now with Kansas City having a nightclub that does comedy and one night a week reserved for new comedians, you can get a start as a comedian in Kansas City. And when you come to New York or LA, which you do ultimately, you're a little more polished than coming in as a total newcomer, which would be very difficult now with all the class acts that are there to make a name for yourself. And ultimately comedy is catch-22, because you can't do a joke, unlike a violinist who can go into the cellar with his teacher and get ready to Carnegie Hall, and the teacher finally goes, "You're ready." The comedian makes all his stakes in front of an audience, so that once something doesn't work, it's too late. You've already exposed the fault. The catch-22 then is, where do you go to find a club where the owner says, come on stage and do poorly if you want? There aren't many places like that. Now, these comedy clubs provide a night a week of amateur night, audition night, where that's just the premise. Come on in and try it out. If it's not funny, the audience is aware of what you're doing, and maybe the next guy will be funny. And it still goes on, no matter how good you get as a comedian and how well known. Every night you got to be trying out new material, and there's no guarantee whether it's going to be funny or not. And if it isn't, the audience has seen it. Unlike the missed chord or the missed note on the violin that you did in your basement, those errors that go unseen. So it's a very vulnerable, out there on the tightrope kind of art form, and I think that's what is appealing about it to the comedians.
It's just out in California. You know what? I flew back from. Are you from California? What part?
Bay Area?
Bay Area. That's at San Francisco, right? Were you there during the earthquake? Yeah, when the bridge fell down. Yeah. Good one. Did you live out there when that happened? Have you suddenly lost the ability to speak? San Francisco, subsequent questions will not be answered. Thanks for dropping by, though, Mr. Comedian. One of these people, look, you just do your show. We paid her money, you be fine. You know what? I was watching the coverage of that earthquake on CNN, and of course they had all kinds of technical difficulties. And at one point they had a reporter in New York talking to a guy in San Francisco, and at one point the guy in New York says to the guy in San Francisco, "Now, Tom, am I correct? You cannot hear me?" And the guy goes, "Yes, that's correct. I cannot hear you." That's when you want your dog to be able to talk, yeah. Just you go, did you heard it too? All right. So you living here now, or? Step on a bee, but keep going back into the hive, Joey.
What about material? Do you have audiences that like certain types of material, and then maybe 3 nights later, the comic will deliver the same material, and the audience will just kind of die?
Yeah.
Make a lot of noise drinking their drinks and
Absolutely.
things like this.
It's very, very difficult to read an audience, and I wouldn't even want to venture to say how difficult it is for a comedian to read an audience. But even for myself, you'll have an audience that will absolutely die over one comedian, one specific night. Same exact comedian, same exact act, 2 nights later, for instance. Even if the same number of people in the club, you might not get a sound out of the audience. I truly feel that most of our crowds want relatively clean material. We're known to have relatively clean comedians, week in, week out. People come to know, I think, especially if they live locally, they come to the club often, they get a true sense of what they're going to see before they even get out here.
Do you come to comedy clubs often?
Yeah, I come here 2 or 3 times a month.
What kind of comedians do you enjoy?
It doesn't really matter, as long as they take good material, as long as it's funny, I don't really mind either way.
What do you particularly like about them?
When they're funny, exciting, and basically when they can get the crowd and everybody in a good mood.
Do you think comedy is more upbeat today? How would we say it? That people want more comedy today.
Sure, it's the in thing of the 90s.
You said audiences like to laugh. Do you think it's because of the times now?
Because of what's going on in the Middle East.
Because of what's going on, not just in the Middle East, but economically.
We haven't seen too much of a change over the last even year. And of course, the economics of the country has changed so drastically in the last year. We haven't seen that much of a change. People are still coming out, I'll tell you that much. We were very nervous that people were going to stay in, not spend that disposable income, you know, that they usually save for going out to a movie, to a nice dinner, to a comedy club. We are still getting the same audiences, the same numbers that we were even before any of this happened.
I should think that when the news is so crummy, and it really is, the first thing you might want to do is run out to your nearest comedy club.
It's a great reliever of stress. I mean, that's what we are trying to guarantee these people. They can come here for an hour and a half, forget all of their problems, forget about what's going on in the country, and laugh for a good hour and a half. And of course, when they go back to their homes and wake up in the morning, they'll hopefully be in a better mood and more productive, etc.
Right for you, right tonight. Please welcome to the stage Joe Bolster. Here he is, Joe Bolster.
Thanks, gang. How you doing? Well, just three of you. Alrighty. Well, good. So, 1991, huh? Been a hell of a year, hasn't it? Christmas is over. I threw out my tree today. Have you gotten rid of your tree yet? I live on the 15th floor. Just open that window and little foliage for passersby. And it's in New York. If you buy a Christmas tree, it's always an adventure because you got to buy it from a. I always enjoy buying it from a Korean fruit vendor. You know, Christmas being such a huge holiday in the Far East. And whatever tree you want, that's what they are standing next to when you walk by. You know, I like a Douglas fir. Yeah, fir right here. Yeah, fir. This fir for you. Yeah, this big fir for you, mister. Big fur for you. How about a spruce? Yeah, also spruce, spruce. Spruce fur for you. How much? $400. What a deal. Well, what else is going on? I feel pretty good tonight. I made a little mistake before I came down here of watching. You're not hiding, why not? What are you guys talking about over here? You working on the food order? What are you eating?
Wings.
You got wings, did you? They good? They what? No, I'm working. I will have a wing while I talk. Shall I work? This is a funny story. My mother comes up. Jesus. Are they spicy wings?
Yeah.
Yeah? What, like super hot?
Yeah.
Yeah? And they're good? Is this dinner? Oh, just a little snack. Alrighty, a little snack. What'd you have for dinner? A black licorice milkshake. We're just gonna chase you with some fiery hot wings. We're trying to open up the arteries. Well, good. You're healthy. I like that. It's good to be healthy. See, restaurants now in New York, especially restaurants in New York, are getting a little pretentious. I was in an Italian place the other day. I think it was called Pretentios. And you know what waiters love these days in New York? They love bringing out that pepper mill, don't they? And as my imagination is, that thing just keeps getting bigger all the time. There's a place that a guy brought it out. For a second, I thought it was a parking meter, you know? It extended his full wingspan just to operate the thing. Fresh pepper. You want fresh pepper, buddy? Getting a hernia, getting this thing out here. Fresh pepper. They don't even care what you're eating. Fresh pepper is Jello. Fresh pepper. Next thing you know, they'll have a guy behind him with a giant bucket and a snow shovel. Parmesan cheese. Of course, you know, you get enough pepper in the air, you start sneezing. And what do you say when someone sneezes? Bless you. Of course, if you're like me, if someone's really sneezing a lot, you lose interest in saying bless you pretty quickly. Now, you give them about 3, and that 4th one, a little tone begins to creep in on bless you. Like, bless you, and just how sick are you? Then you try to get out of the commitment by switching from bless you to Gesundheit. You know, you go from this sort of quasi-religious Hallmark greeting card phrase to some kind of Nazi word meaning shut up and die already. Take those busted sinuses and beat it. I still got some life in me. Of course, you know, I think we all have the same reactions to certain things in life, you know? You ever been outside when the Goodyear blimp is going by? We all do the same thing. Look, the blimp! Look! The bib! It's impossible to ignore that thing. If you see it, you will point it out. It could fly over a funeral. Dearly beloved, oh, look at the bib! Oh, it's not such a bad day after all. Of course, then we all have our little dark sides, little secret sides. You wonder if people share these. Like me, I have a bad thing. I don't like, you know what books I like to read? True crime murder books. And I feel ashamed. People say, what are you reading? I'm always going, well, I'm reading a book about the flowers of Indonesia. Really, it's some book like, I can't stop killing people. Women who kill too much, yeah. But I'm feeling better. I made the mistake before I came out here of watching Lifestyles of Rich and Famous. And there's a show that always makes me feel pretty good about my personal achievements in life. You know, Robin Leach yells something like, every morning the world's richest man takes a bath in a tumbler of champagne and laughs. Ha ha. You know, and I'm sitting home with a bowl of cheese doodles and no elastic in my underwear. You got a wire hanger coming out of TV going, yeah, I can relate to that lifestyle. I shampooed once with Meisterbrow, I know what wealth can be. And the money people waste. You know, they had a guy in that show last year who bought a bottle of wine for $176,000. I think it would serve him right. He takes it home, and his teenage kids break in and drink it. What happened to my wine? We made spritzers. Kids, that bottle's worth a fortune. Dad, don't panic. We save the bottle. You can still get your deposit. See, I like wine. Now, see, people take wine too seriously. They get too, you know, serious about it. Like, I was on a wine tasting tour once in Northern California, and the woman's talking about acidification and oxygenation and fermentation, you know, and I'm basically thinking, great, where's the free wine? Let's talk about my dehydration. Had enough of your presentation, let's get going on my intoxication. You know, then she goes, any questions? I just want a guy from Brooklyn to be there and cut through all the crap. Yeah, I got a question. What wine would you recommend to get the best buzz? I'm not looking to match it up with a meat or a fish. I just want to get totally ripped. Capiche? Do we have a lot of Italian people here? Yeah. Do you? Right here, right here. Okay. Where are you from?
Princeton.
Are you from Princeton?
Princeton, Kingston.
Princeton, Kingston. Yeah, now, once you get out of the Lincoln Tunnel, it's welcome to Princeton these days, yeah. It's expanded quite a bit. I used to grow up with a lot of Italian kids in the Princeton area, and this is a weird story. When I was 12 years old, I got a ride home from a babysitting job for a guy in the mafia. This woman comes over to the job, she says, my husband is still at the party. You will be given a ride home by Mr. Knuckles. I get in the car, you had to see this, I'm 12 years old, buck teeth, little burr haircut, this is big guy with a black hat, black car, you know, I'm like, hi. He's going, so your name's Joey, right? They call you Joey? They do now. Yeah, you do good in school, Joey? If you say so. He drops me off for like the next 20 years. I was panicked that now I owed this guy a favor. And then one day the phone rang, hello, yeah, Joey, how you doing? It's Mr. Knuckles, remember me? Yeah. Remember that time I gave you a ride over in that babysitting job? Yeah. I want you to ice a guy for me in Philly, okay? Take a brick, beat his head, doing no movement no more. Okay, Mr. Knuckles, thanks, bye. See you later.
Were you a funny kid?
Yes, I was funny. I was funny, and not in the sort of classic class clown way, which I think people associate with a guy that blows up the books in the locker room with a firecracker and, you know, jams with the toilet. I wasn't that kind of guy. I was more like the kid in the back of the room who would say something, you know, on a side that would make everyone laugh who could hear it.
You know,
sly and clever.
Crazy.
Yeah, I wasn't broad in my humor. Yeah, it was more of a kind of sly and clever sides and wordy as opposed to slapstick.
Joe, you have almost seen the light at the end of the tunnel, up through the mountain, wherever you want to see that little sliver of light. Do you think it's harder to get to the top or to stay there?
Well, I like to find out. You know, it's been a nice long career for me. So, I mean, I've been doing this over a little 10 years, and I think that's the best way to make it, you know, to have a long, slow build, because if you make it too quick, I don't think you appreciate the toughness of show business, and it isn't an easy business to be in. And I think if you have a sense of the struggle, when you get to the top and continue to run into peaks and valleys, you're more able to deal with them, as opposed to somebody who's had a quick rise and then get to the top and have their first sort of obstacle thrown in their path. It may throw them more. And I mean, Freddie Prinze is a good example of somebody who I think made it too fast, if that's possible. And so that when he began to encounter troubles and temptations, his head wasn't on, you know, hard enough or tight enough to realize that that it was sort of the, you know, temptation that he should resist. And I think it happens to a lot of singers too, younger singers in the rock and roll world especially. There's a lot of emphasis on making it quickly, and you see very young people with a lot of money and a lot of people hanging out that aren't and have their best interests in mind, and you have some real horror stories. So I think if you, you know, do it the slow way, it's a better way to get there, and you're more together when you do make it.
I also read that you had been on The Tonight Show. Was Johnny Carson on that night?
I was on with Johnny. I've been on with Jay Leno too, both of them.
Were you lucky enough to be, you know, what do they call it? Couch.
On the panel?
Yes.
I did it with
yes.
Jay, but not with Johnny. The first time you're on with Johnny, you don't generally do it. I mean, it would take an extraordinary response or some whim on his part to wave you over. I think Freddie Prinze was called over. There have been comedians called over because the show's running long and they can't bring out another guest because there's not enough time, and so they call the comedian over to fill out the 2 minutes that they have left. But generally, they sort of make you pay your dues for 3 or 4 shots, as they call them. Before
Yeah,
you get
this is
to the
what I
panel.
had read, you
Yeah.
know, that it's very rare
The
on
first time, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, to be called over. How does it feel to go on a show like that? Or David Letterman?
Well, I liked Letterman better. I found it an
Do
easier
you?
experience. Yeah, the Tonight Show strikes me as, first of all, it's been on the air now 29 years.
That's a long time.
It is. And for you, when you go on, it is the most incredible night of your life. To them, it's Tuesday.
Yeah.
You know, there's a real intimidation factor. They've been doing it. They're pros. They, you know, it's a job to them. And to a comedian, you know, you're coming on and you feel like your whole life is riding on this particular performance, and it's exciting and a plum, and you've made it, and you're having all these feelings and emotions. And they're very cool and professional, and there's a different kind of, they don't feel the same way you do. So if you go expecting to be, wow, Joe, great to have you. Oh, we've been looking forward to you. You know, they just, well, here's where you stand. This is what you do. Then you go over there. Don't stand here. Johnny does this, and it happens very fast.
Don't mess with the star.
Don't touch Johnny's star. That's the one thing you remember. Johnny stands here, and you don't. All right, I'll be over here. You just try to get through it, I think, without embarrassing yourself. And you know, the camera's there, and there's a little red light on it, and you know that on the other side of that light are about 14 million people, and that's a thought that goes through your head.
Do you get nervous?
Depends on what I'm doing. For a show like that, yeah. You know, these clubs that I do now, they're sort of routine. I still enjoy doing them, but they don't frighten me like they used to. You know, they did a survey once, the 10 most feared things in the world, you know, the book of lists.
Public speaking.
And number one was getting in front
yeah,
of people and talking.
yeah,
Death
yeah.
was 6th, just to give you an idea how frightening talking is. Can you imagine that? And not trying to be funny, just
No,
getting up and
that's
talking.
true.
I mean, trying to be funny, and it must be even more frightening to people. And when I first started, it was terrifying to me. I had to read my material with my knees knocking.
Well, Wednesday night, I was at 7-Eleven last night because I'm kind of a health food freak myself. And I think I may have unwittingly made a pharmaceutical breakthrough. Pass this tip along to you folks. If you're looking to stay up all night tonight and you can't afford no-dose, about 10 minutes before you go to bed, eat a Slim Jim and a Mountain Dew. You know, because Mountain Dew has enough caffeine to snap you back from a near-death experience. Slim Jim has enough chemicals to clean your swimming pool. I went to a detox center. What are you on? Beef jerky, you know. 2 sticks, I hallucinated a Brady Bunch rerun. I knew I was hallucinating because I thought the acting was pretty good. And here's another clue. If you find that your life's moving too fast and you want to slow it down to a complete crawl, pay for your stuff at 7-Eleven with a $50 bill. And watch the cashier suddenly become an inspector from the U.S. Treasury Department. Yeah, she's snapping and popping and flicking and dunking in water, you know, minimum wage employee, but apparently an expert on counterfeit money. And finally she goes, it's okay, really. I didn't know Tommy Lasorda was on the $50 bill.
Well, I'm doing a show now on the Comedy Channel called Sports Monster, where I play a character. I play an ex-Major League Baseball player who was a big star in the major leagues and now has gotten into the broadcast booth, as a lot of those athletes do, but on no merit. He's there only for his marquee value, and he's very stuck up and narcissistic and talks about himself constantly. And he's very focused on, for instance, he hit 312 home runs in the major leagues, which is a nice total, but he always adds that he had 5 home runs rained out. So he could have been that much better. Everything is, he's always padding and exaggerating, and he knows everybody in the world, Buddy Hackett, Frank Sinatra, all personal friends. And every story that he is involved with on the show descends ultimately into some anecdote about him in Atlantic City with, you know, Frank and Don Rickles.
If you could do anything else except comedy, would you?
There's 2 things that I would rather do than stand-up comedy, and they're both incredible fantasies, but one would be to play in the NBA, and the other would be to play Major League Baseball. And I'd have to be a home run hitter in Major League Baseball and a Michael Jordan type player in basketball. Otherwise, I wouldn't be interested. If I was a slow, weak-hitting catcher, I'm not interested, even if it's the major leagues. And if I was a big lumbering center in the NBA, I'm not interested either. That's the only 2 things I would leave comedy for. And I think it's pretty safe that I'll be in the business for quite a while.
I hope all of you had as much fun tonight as I did. And by the way, if you're in the Princeton neighborhood, why not stop off at the very beautiful Hyatt Regency Princeton? Come on downstairs to the Catch a Rising Star and treat yourself to a wonderful evening of comedy. I'm sure you'll have a ball. We all did. I'll see you all next month. And in the meantime, take care.
And people will tell you dumb stuff on the phone. I called a friend once and his wife answered. I said, hello, is Barry there? She says, well, he has his own phone in the house. You got to call on that. You know, the number's 556-1279. I said, fine. Hang up, call back, takes me 2 seconds. She answers the phone. And acts like she has no idea who it is. I said, yeah, is Barry there? She goes, no, I'm sorry, he's not here. Well, you seem like a pretty close family. Appreciate you taking that extra time to look for him. I'd like you to give him a message. Should I call you back on your phone? I don't know. I guess we all do dumb stuff, myself included. You know what I did the other day? Actually, not the other day, but a couple months ago. I broke my finger. See this pinky? And what's stupid is I broke it bowling. You know what happened? My ball didn't come back. So I stuck my hand down the ball trying to shoot. And then it came back.